Okay, we've got it. This is being live streamed. And now we've got it that the recording is started. Well, perhaps I'll start. I know Terry wasn't sure how well it was going to work in terms of him trying to connect. Oh, he's trying a different source.
There he is.
Yeah. I think everyone else is here.
We just lost Al.
Ah.
Well, there's Terry.
Okay. Yeah. So we just have to get Al back. No, Terry's. Okay.
Terry,
Well,
can you hear us?
It's got to be somewhere warm and tropical.
Hi, Terry. Are you a long ways away? So there's a bit of a delay.
Oh, here comes Al back. Terry, if you can hear us, wave your hand. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I've got a very,
Well, there
very
we go.
glitchy connection, I'm afraid.
That's okay. We can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Well, why don't we get going? Wait for Steph to there we are. So I'll start the meeting then. Welcome everyone. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And whether there's introduction of late items, is there anything coming that's a late item that I should know about?
Nothing that I know of.
Okay. And then I'll be adding probably either after Kristen's first presentation or maybe as new business. We just wanted to discuss the notion of trying to move forward with the West Side sharing agreement. And so perhaps we'll just, we can discuss that because it's mentioned in Kristen's report. So maybe at the end of her section, we may have a motion put forward to try and move that along. Okay, so hearing
Well, that can just be added to discussed in the section of Kristen's report, I think.
Okay, good. So we'll do that then. Okay, and then so is everyone mover and seconder to approve the agenda?
Move.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Al. All in favor? Okay, the agenda is approved. The minutes. So hopefully people have had a chance to look at the minutes of our November 10th meeting. And any corrections or comments on the minutes? Okay, hearing none. A mover and seconder for adoption of the minutes, please.
Move.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Graham. All in favor? Motion's carried. Then I can see that there's no one here from the public. Do you see anyone, Steph?
Hold
Yes,
on, I've got someone in the waiting room. One
No.
moment.
Is there someone in the waiting room? Okay.
No,
Maybe see if they want to make a comment.
He's having a long time connecting too.
Yeah. Maybe the Zoom people want us to upgrade to the more expensive system now.
Oh, we got Terry on twice now.
Yeah. Hi, David Smith, I see you've joined us. We are just in the section of public comments. And so we're just checking to see if you wanted to make a public comment or not. You are muted right now.
Okay.
Thank you. David, did you wish to make a public comment? Okay, hearing none. We'll move now to the next item on the agenda, which is elections. And so we need to elect a chair and a vice chair. Do we have any suggestions or motions in terms of the chair and vice chair? I would be pleased to stand again as the chair, but I leave it to the pleasure of the committee on that one.
Sure, all in favor?
All in favor? Promise.
And then Graham, do you wish to continue as the vice chair?
As long as I can keep on putting on my resume, sure.
Sure. Okay. Do we hear any other nominations for vice chair?
Unless
Okay,
someone else wants to, that's totally fine.
yeah, but hearing none, then I would like a motion that the chair and the vice chair are to be John O'Donnell and Graham Pitches. Thank you, Terrence. Thank you, Al. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. So the next item is finance, and I'll turn it over to staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I don't have a lot of additional information to add this evening. I haven't prepared a presentation. I hope you all had adequate time to review the agenda material. Everything that I wanted to touch upon is included in, I think, a pretty comprehensive report as to how I developed the financial plan this year. You know, we're really just going same model as in prior years, but there is special note that, you know, clearly things are going to look very different next year once the well upgrades are complete. So, you know, it's obvious we're going to have to hold a couple or several joint meetings with the other two local advisory committees. There's going to be a whole lot of discussion and sharing of ideas about how the financial model should be structured going forward. So with that in mind, I'm not proposing any significant changes to this year. We looked at rates last year. The amount that we had included in the financial plan for Bowen Bay increase for 2023 was an increase of 12%. I'm going to be proposing the same increase for King Edward Bay. We definitely did things a bit differently in Blue Water Park this year because they had interim financing costs. So we did recommend a 20% rate increase for Blue Water Park this year. And that was approved last night by the Blue Water Park LAC. So the plan then is to take that 12% increase that we're proposing for Bowen Bay and contribute, you know, a good portion of it, almost 21,000, to put into the Bowen Bay reserves. That equates to about 28% of the revenue going into the reserve. We know they're underfunded. We know we need to get to a place where we have some flexibility and resiliency, financial resiliency, to begin the process to undertake some capital investments. So, you know, we've been talking asset management for quite a bit. We had a full-on meeting basically focused on asset management with council and capital projects earlier this week. So we're looking forward to the day when we can share that plan with you as it relates to the Bowen Bay water infrastructure. Expenses in the operating plan, of course, the biggest piece of that are salaries. We're planning for a 4% increase to wages this year. We are at some point this year going into contract negotiations. The outcomes of those discussions is unknown at this point. We're still waiting for to have notice from our union partners to begin the bargaining process. So as soon as that gets underway, we'll have better information about what the actual impact on salaries is going to be. when we conclude the whole financial planning process, we talked about this with Blue Water Park last night. Well, we're talking about it with Bowen Bay with you guys tonight. We're going to have to pretty much start initiating those joint meetings. I think it's probably going to take several meetings to get to a place where we can find some consensus and what that new financial cost allocation model looks like. So I hope that you guys are all sticking around this summer because there's a lot of work to do. Anything further discussions on the rate structure we talked about earlier, how to structure that with metered rates and stuff. We're pausing that until we complete the work on the new cost allocation model. We don't know how that's going to play out. And I think considering any changes in advance of that would be premature and probably would result in too many changes in too short a period of time for people. So I'm sure you'll all be happy to hear that I'm dropping that for now. So there's a couple of recommendations on the table tonight. The first being that staff are recommending that the local advisory, the Bowen Bay Local Advisory Committee, approve the 5-year financial plan and that the municipality include it in its 5-year financial plan. And the second is that the local advisory committee approve the rate recommendation with a 12% increase for 2023. Of course, with all of this is the full understanding that the years 2024 through 2027 really are a big unknown. They're going to look really different and depend really on the outcome of those discussions. So I am asking you to approve the 5-year plan, but knowing that that really we're only concerned about 2023 here for now, and until we have that plan in place, we just have to approve a plan for the full 5-year period, even though we know it will likely look very different. So that will bring the connected rate to $12.16 for connected properties from $10.85 and to $7.56 from $6.75 for those couple of unconnected properties. And that's it from me. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, just a question around the CFO's salary. So sorry, they may just give us a bit more detail around the sort of 25% that are allocated towards the LACs. It was reduced last year to a part-year vacancy. Just trying to understand that a bit more.
So part of the increase in salaries, if you do the straight math on it, it's certainly more than a 4% increase. Last year, salaries were adjusted to accommodate a couple of things. One being my salary, for example, was I didn't work here the full year last year. So when I allocated my cost of my salary, we're looking at a much smaller piece of it. Mm-hmm. And then also, given the nature of the time that Patrick spends on water utility systems, he was included in the utility budgets at 35%. We've increased his inclusion rate to 40% based on how he spends his time. So not only is there like an amount in there for salary increases of 4%, but there's also a larger component of administrative staff time going to water systems.
So is that so unique to the West Side water systems because
no, there's
going on, or is that all?
No, in the report there's a chart that shows the allocation across all of the water systems. Bowen Bay, I think.
No, not page
Hope
9.
Bay takes a bigger piece of staffing because they have a water treatment plant and the sewer treatment plant also takes a bigger piece of it because they have dedicated infrastructure that requires dedicated staff to operate those. The rest of them are all operated on a pro rata allocation based on number of connections. So Bowen Bay pays its 59 or 61 connections out of 1258, I think is the number it pays that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen, I had a question on the operating plan. It's just an explanation, I think, really. The reserves look like they're 21,000, and then there's 12,000 transferred out of that reserve,
Mhm.
which leaves 9,000. Is that enough, do you think? Or just
It's probably not. The 12,000 is just sitting there as a contingency in case we need to replace a panel or a piece of equipment or something. So there's nothing, we have nothing actually budgeted for capital other than, of course, the undertaking of the well upgrade, but that's not showing up in your budget.
right.
That's going to be paid for out of the Blue Water Park budget. But we always want to put something in. We never know when we're going to have something that needs to be replaced, a panel or a pump or some kind of equipment. So no, we do believe that we need to start putting more and more away. We are tempered by the fact that we know that we have to get additional work done on the asset management plan.
There is a contribution to reserves there, John. If you look at the very bottom of that long schedule on page 11 with fund balance summary, you started out the 2023 with 168,000 and 21,000 is being added and 12 is being provided for as a potential expense. So you have increased the reserves. Not by much, or by some.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had a question about
Thank you.
the upcoming expenditure, because I seem to recall as part of the Blue Water upgrades that's going to start this year, is that Bowen Bay was going to be contributing to the upgrading of the pumps based on the depreciated value of the pumps. Now, I think the value was around $30,000.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
Did you want to speak to that, Patrick? I can speak to it if you aren't able to connect right now.
He's in.
Okay.
You're muted, Patrick.
Yeah, we've looked into the Bowen Bay well one issues, and the pump replacement wasn't required. And we haven't included any contribution to the pump upgrades in the Bowen Bay budget. The new pumps are needed to achieve the goals of the project, and it's funded by the Blue Water Park budget and associated borrowing.
Okay, thank you. And then perhaps I think you're next on the agenda. You could perhaps give us just a quick report on why the pump failed at that time.
There was some electrical issues. We thought it may be needing to replace the pump itself, but that turned out not to be the case. So certainly for the next year before the new pumps are installed, it's reliable.
So if I'm hearing right, then once, as part of installing the new pumps, Bowen Bay won't be making a contribution?
Just remind me what.
Yeah, I guess, and not that I want us to, but on the other hand, I just don't want us to get caught flat-footed. I thought as part of the sort of Blue Water bylaw and upgrade that there was going to be a partial cost to Bowen Bay because we're taking our old pumps out and replacing them with smart pumps, I thought. And then we're connecting the smart pumps with a fill line to King Edward. And I thought at the time it was suggested that since the smart pumps, are going to be a brand new pump replacing maybe a 5 to 12-year-old pump, we don't know how old the current pumps are, that we would be making a partial contribution based on the depreciated value of the pumps that we have now.
And you're exactly right. I am sorry, missed that. We did discuss that, the residual value essentially of the discrepancy between the value of having a brand new pump versus the current value of having the existing pump with less years left in it would be Bowen Bay contribution. And I didn't have a better estimate of, of what that should be. We were thinking that we were going to be pulling the pump and in that case, if Bowen Bay's just purchasing a new pump, there's no discrepancy, right? So we weren't planning on that being part of the equation. But since we didn't have to do that, there is, by rights, there is some value there. It's a small amount relative to the cost of the project. It's probably something in the order of $10,000.
Okay. Well, I mean, this may come up in the sharing agreement discussion, so I guess we all want to be straightforward with everyone. So I'm just recalling what was talked about. And so if we do need to make a contribution that's not in this budget, I suppose it can come out of capital reserves.
That would be where it would have to come out.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be spending that money until 2024, right, Patrick?
Well, it would be between end of 2023 and beginning of 2024.
So we may have to pick that up in next year's budget, which might either we take it out of reserves or it might trigger an increase larger than 5% for 2024. Let's see, the 5-year plan proposes 12.1% for 2023, but then 5% for the following 4 years. So I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
There is a $12,000 line item in the capital expenditures for equipment replacement and upgrade in the 2023 budget.
There is. And
so unless something fails, you've got that to draw on.
Well, actually, no, what Patrick has felt that maybe the cost might be more in the order of 10,000, and in which case the 12,000 would cover it. Because but I think Patrick's got a line item there for potential repairs of leaks and things. Isn't that right, Patrick? That's what that line item is for?
That's what that's for, yes. Yeah.
And we have had a few, pipe repairs. So that's what that item's for. But if it's not, if we're lucky this year and don't have any repairs, then we have $12,000 to put towards pump contribution.
I mean, that could be put towards in the 2024 budget because the project will be spanning from winter 2023 into the spring 2024. So it picked up in the 2024 Bowen Bay budget.
Okay. Yeah.
If I could just ask just a clarifying question. That is true. What initially you had mentioned to me, Patrick, was that you didn't anticipate any of the cost of the pump replacement going or the pump upgrade going to the Bowen Bay LAC because you determined that the repair that was needed was fixed and the pump was serviceable and it didn't need to be replaced. So we wouldn't be allocating any of the project. So that's how I structured the budget. And that's also how I wrote the report right from the very first paragraph. So if that is incorrect, we could correct the budget now at this point and make sure that we put the correct. I think it's important that we're clear whether any part of this upgrade piece is being attributed to Bowen Bay or it's not, because it's kind of an important point for people, I think. So I would like to get clarity and get that straight now, and I don't feel that I am.
Chris, hearing the discussion though, it sounds like the money won't be incurred until 2024. So really then we could discuss this as part of the West Side sharing agreement.
Yeah.
And then the results of the the West Side sharing agreement would be reflected in the 2024 budget.
Okay.
And then
Included as
meanwhile,
part of the discussion.
tendering may have occurred as well by next fall. So we've got a better idea of all the financial implications.
Okay. Okay, I'm happy with that.
Okay, does that
Yeah.
sound good?
So I'm not gonna change anything in the 5-year plan at this point. Because it could be, if it's not gonna be incurred until next year anyways, then I'm not gonna worry about it now.
Are
How
are all
much-
the are all the LAC members comfortable with that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, so then I think we would be prepared to move to the recommendation part. So the
Kristen, can you just add the rate amount into the main recommendation so we don't need to have two?
We,
Right now, and there is a typo. It should say Bowen Bay, not Blue Water. So
Oh.
couldn't you just say that the Bowen Bay Water System Local Advisory Committee recommend to council that the draft Bowen Bay 5-year financial plan, including the rates as presented at its March 28th, 2023 meeting, be included with the Bowen Island Municipality's 5-year financial plan?
oh, I'm looking at two different recommendations. There's one in the report and one in the agenda, and they're different.
Oh,
So
I'm just
I'm
looking at
sorry,
the
I'm
one in the
feeling
agenda.
confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
agenda
okay.
one, agenda 5C.
Okay,
But
report is the
has
one
a
we
typo. But we'd be happy to approve Blue Waters, but we probably do our own. And then, yes, specifically, I guess we should reference the 12.1% increase. Is that what you're suggesting, Allison?
Well, I hadn't noticed that the difference between the motion that was in the agenda cover sheet and the one that was on
I hadn't either.
the report. So I was just trying to cover it all off in one motion rather than trying to craft a second one. But
Honey, I don't even see in my agenda attachment of Kristen's report. I mean, where's the motion at the beginning?
it's right at the very first
Oh,
thing
there
on the
it is.
report.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of severed motions. I like little
Mhm.
pieces at a
So,
time.
so you're wanting a
Here, I'll put it on the
plan for
screen.
5-year rate increase approved. Yeah, okay.
Why don't we
So,
go with the motion as attached to Kristen's report?
yeah,
So I think can you guys see this now?
yeah. And you need to
Yeah.
turn it around. You need to approve the 5-year rate increase before you approve the financial plan, because the rate increase is what's in the financial plan.
And we want to include 12% in there.
Just do the amount, 1216 and for connected and 756 for unconnected.
Okay, sorry, 1216.
Is it, so do you still want the 5-year rate increases in there?
No, I don't think we need that. I think we need supports the 2023 rate of 1216 for connected and 756 for unconnected.
And get rid of sorry, what was the unconnected?
756.
Rates needs to be plural, 2023 rates as recommended.
Yeah.
Take out the of.
Pardon?
You can't have rates of as recommended.
Okay, and then this is the same and
Yeah.
Now, do you want two separate motions or do you want it all voted on as one, Kristen?
If the committee is willing to approve both at once, then we can go with one. Otherwise, they should be severed.
Happy with one motion.
So you would sever if there was somebody who wanted to vote no to the rates amount.
Yeah, do we have a mover and a seconder for the motions?
Move it.
Sorry, who was the mover? Terrence?
I've got Graham.
Oh, Graham. And who would second it?
Second,
Al would second. Anyone wish to have discussion or to break the motion into two parts? Okay, then hearing none, the motion is moved and seconded. Please the vote. All in favor?
Yep.
I see, does everyone see, I can't see, Terrence is, oh, there we go. Okay. So we've got it all in favor, passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, this is where I'd like to move a second motion that as referenced in Kristen's report, that there should be, I guess, an agreement drawn up between the three West Side water systems and the municipality that sets out the financial, operational, construction issues and contingencies of moving forward with the West Side water sharing. We might need some cleanup on that. I mean, essentially we're stepping back for a moment. The West Side water sharing is moving forward based on the approval of the Blue Water borrowing and the Blue Water construction, which will then result in a connection of Blue Water to King Edward and to Bowen Bay. And given that, we need an agreement to cover off the various issues and contingencies and unforeseen circumstances as related to the financing, the operation, even during construction. If there's issues, something during this work, it causes damage to Bowen Bay, for instance, infrastructure, who covers that? And then any contingencies, unforeseen circumstances resulting in the construction of all the interconnections.
You can't put all that in a motion.
I know, but I would like to say, okay, so I'm suggesting that the West Side sharing agreement.
So are we doing motion now, or did you want to have a bit of discussion, or would you like me to share a screen to craft a motion?
I think we should discuss a bit. So John, just wanting to keep things sort of simple. So Kristen says on the bottom of the first page of a report, the new financial cost sharing model will need to be developed with stakeholder input from residents of all three local service areas. So you're happy with that concept? So if I'm understanding, you're wanting something to happen on how you're going to share the cost for the first 3 years from 2024 to 20, because she's talking about there will be a span of a period of up to 3 years during all the construction and everything.
Mhm.
So is it the 3-year period you're wanting to have some meetings about to discuss how it will be shared?
I guess
Or
the agreement, I think the bylaws went forward under the Blue Water Park, sets out all the circumstances of building the system right now. So really, is there, so I don't necessarily see that we need to have an agreement that says, that if there's unforeseen costs, that King Edward Bay and Bowen Bay should contribute. But if you think there should be, or Kristen thinks that that's why that's clause is there, then there should be. Whereas I know, I mean, I spent, and actually all the Bowen Bay residents and committee spent a lot of time in December making council aware of the fact that it needs to be a West Side sharing agreement. We can't just rush and join and not have rules. Is how do we share the resource and share the issues of management, etc.
so that's what the last paragraph on page 1 of Kristen's report, to me, covers that. That joint meetings of the LACs will need to be held to elicit input on the development of the new model. But the new model won't really take effect, if I'm reading Kristen's report correctly, until all the construction is done.
Okay, well, just one, because it's come up a number of times in the past, is if we have a water shortage once we're hooked up, and we need to go on stage 4. Does Blue Water go on stage 4 and Bowen Bay not, or we all go on stage 4? That's not agreed to.
But that's something that would get developed in the new sharing model.
That's what we want to do right now.
So you want to develop the sharing model now before the construction and the systems are actually put together,
Yes,
rather than working on it over the next 2 years.
that's right. We had 13 meetings already. We got very close to some notions of sharing and discussions. But yes, we want to develop it now. We want to develop before there's another crisis. Right? It's better to develop it when everyone is feeling, that things are in hand and we've got borrowing, we've got plans coming up. It's better to develop it in that circumstance than if next summer, God forbid, there should be another huge pipe failure or something, and reservoirs to get drained, and we have to. Everyone's suddenly on stage 4, and people are mad at each other, etc. That's not the time to just have a sharing agreement discussion. It won't go anywhere. So I think now that we've crystallized the Blue Water vote, and we've crystallized the notion that Blue Water people are, only 19% were in favor of what's going forward, or sorry, only 19% were opposed to what's going forward, that perhaps we could start the discussions between Blue Water and King Edward and Bowen Bay with a different tenure than previously, because I think we were operating under a different set of assumptions. But we definitely want to get, we don't need to discuss the financial model. It's all laid out in the borrowing bylaw. We need to discuss unforeseen financial costs that might come up. And we need to discuss unforeseen issues of building the infrastructure that might impact other systems. And then we need to discuss the issues of the eventual interconnection and how the resource will be managed. So I strongly suggest we want to go forward with that. It's nothing new. We've talked about it in previous meetings in the MOU. Patrick can remember, 13 meetings to have the MOU.
Kristen's
Just
got
trying
something
to capitalize on a lot of work we've already done, and to bring it to conclusion. And so that's really more what I'm talking about. But yes,
Kristen's got her hand up. Maybe we should let her.
sure.
I had some questions. I think part of it had to do with the timing of the completion of the well upgrade and when water would start to be produced for the King Edward Bay tank. So Patrick, is the timing of that anticipated to be that the well upgrades are finished first, and throughout that time design elements for the water main upgrades? My question is specifically if the well upgrades are finished first, but the water main upgrades are not yet in place, then theoretically, in my mind, there could be one kind of cost sharing model. And this is not so much for the Bowen Bay side, but more for the King Edward Bay side, I think, King Edward Bay Blue Water Park. It's very clear to me that any incremental costs that Bowen Bay incurs as a result of additional water supply production, they have to be reimbursed 100% for all of those. So there's going to be additional pumping, there's going to be additional hydro costs, so we have to capture those, and Bowen Bay has to be reimbursed for 100% of those. But the cost sharing piece and the interim before the construction and the project is complete, my question is, what does that look like between Bowen Bay and Blue Water Park? Because once Blue Water Park has funded this significant upgrade to produce more water, I think the existing model of allocating costs between the two needs to change, and then it needs to change once again when the entire project's done. So I think those are the pieces, but I think there's an interim model and then there's a final model. That's what I want to.
Is there anything we
consider
can
and-
take away from the agreement that King Edward Bay currently has with Blue Water, or is that just a pure sort of sales transaction?
Yeah, there's
Obviously
no agreement there.
Okay.
It's allocation of costs that we
Okay.
allocate to each system.
Okay.
Mhm. So I agree with you, John. I think that we need to get started on these discussions right from the get-go. I don't think we can wait.
So maybe your motion should just be simple, John, that a meeting be held between the chairs and Kristen and Patrick to discuss getting started on the cost sharing models, interim and future.
But more than cost sharing, the operational cost and operational issues. Like we're really want, it's not all about dollars here. It's,
You mean the management, like the management of the resource?
yes. It's a shared resource.
say-
No one's arguing about that, but it's management of that shared resource.
Yeah.
It's management of how, as issues come up, they're dealt with.
Yeah.
I mean, Kristen, and a silly one, but a great one is, give her the timelines. The pumps could well be in next year, but the connecting line might be a year away. But a lot of these pumps only come with a 1-year warranty. So if this brand new pump failed before we actually connected, it would actually be Bowen Bay's cost, because it would be part of our infrastructure. So we got to kind of grind through all that minutia.
Yeah.
I think actually, the groundwork's there. I mean, I did quite a draft what I thought of the issues we should cover in such an agreement, which was presented to council in December, or well, it certainly was distributed. And but anyway, yes. So we could have a simple motion that Bowen Bay LAC asks that the municipality commence the discussions commence hosting and the discussions between Blue Water Park, Bowen Bay, and King Edward Bay on financial and operational issues of the future joint West Side water system. How's that for simpler?
Yeah, I like it.
And then okay, so then further discussion about timing. As I mentioned, if the world were perfect, this would be wrapped up by the end of July. Because after the end of July, water issues could come out of nowhere. So I think that's lots of time, because we have had quite, Patrick will attest, quite a lot of previous meetings. I don't want another 13 meetings. I think hopefully we could do it in 3 or 4 meetings and wrap it up hopefully by June for council to consider before the summer break. Because it would
So
have.
it's not future joint West Side water systems, it's operational issues of the current and future.
Current and future.
Yeah.
Although should we take out current, because then we'll get it drawn into the current debate between King Edward Bay and Blue Water on whether their payments should continue for use of King Edward Bay water. I mean, that's
Well, that's what Blue Water was told that last night, that those payments will continue.
okay. So there's
Correct,
that
Kristen?
doesn't need to be discussed.
Well, for this year, for 2023,
This
they
year,
will
yeah.
continue. Yeah.
But anyway, we could on the future joint West Side water system. So
But you're worried about something happening this summer and before the whole system even gets fully integrated, and how you're gonna.
I think the issues are, they all can be identified now. Like, is there anything that's going to come out of the construction of this, Patrick, that you think might alter how we look at things if we were to sit down 2 years from now?
Something that might alter how we look at things.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be installing new well pumps and interconnecting the systems between, say, like construction October of this year and April of next year. And then we'll, as soon as we have that in place, we'll be, evaluating how that system performs, and is it as we expect, effectively closing the supply gap in blue water? Is there something that was unexpected? That's got to be something that we assess. And if there is something unexpected, is it something that means we now have to look at diverting some of the borrowed funds towards well exploration and development of new wells? So, I guess if things go as we expect them to go, and the advice we've gotten from our hydrogeologists and engineers and our staff is accurate, then we don't expect surprises. But if we will be evaluating what we install very closely, how well it works, and how things are lining up compared to what we envisioned. So I don't know if that answers your question fully, but it's there's an evaluation period there, really from May to November next year, going through a recharge after the high use period, where we're evaluating that question. Is there anything that's unexpected here that we need to deal with?
Okay, what do others think about this? Any other thoughts? The only, you raised the issue of future wells. Now, I thought, and again, Dennis Vedder is not here tonight because he thought things were I talked to him earlier today, and he thought things were in hand. But Dennis has certainly been advocating, I believe, to continue the search and for new wells. And I thought council was under the understanding that there would still be resources spent to try and activate new wells. Is that not correct?
There is some preliminary work, like desktop, preliminary field investigation, just looking at where you would explore for new wells. And there's a few different spots that might make sense. In terms of getting into actually drilling new wells, that could be done in conjunction with somebody who's developing land, and that may be a driver for that. But our sort of decision point around that would be after towards the end of next year, once we've evaluated the well upgrades and interconnected system performance. Is there something that makes sense to divert in terms of the borrowed funds towards well exploration and development? And so that would be the time where we really make that decision about getting into the larger costs about actually drilling the well, doing the monitoring and testing, and then moving into development of new wells. There may be, we've talked previously about the well adjacent to the Arbutus Ridge development that would be potentially brought online in conjunction with phase 4 of that subdivision, the phase 4 subdivision, whatever the timing of that may be. So there is still exploration of new wells. There's the time frame is as I've described.
Okay, well, I think perhaps we should ask for this motion to be considered now, unless there's any other amendments. And then I'd like to add that we'd like the work to commence within the next month, with potentially the goal of concluding it by the end of June. It's only our motion. Council can do whatever they wish, but I think we'd like to set a timeline, at least indicate our desires to get on with it.
Do you want between or with Bowen Bay? Because staff's going to be part of the discussions, correct?
Staff it's a four-party agreement.
Yeah.
It's the municipality and the three water systems.
And if you leave the word future in there, you're not going to be talking about what's going to happen in the next 3 years.
Yeah, that's right.
So do you
Yeah,
want to take
future's fine.
future out?
No, future's fine. Because we really, whatever happens in the next 3 years would be resolved hopefully in the following year when more work is done.
Okay, so you want the futures left in there,
Yes, please.
but I thought you were wanting to deal with issues that might come up in the next year or two before the whole
Oh.
thing's operational.
I guess we that would be desirable, but is it possible? Do you think, Patrick, there would be fruitful discussions on the what ifs of the vagaries of building this system?
You mean in terms of discussions about project delivery and
Yeah, or if in digging the new connecting water main, they damage the Bowen Bay water main. And theoretically, that would be the cost of blue water, wouldn't it?
or depending on the circumstance, it would likely, if it's a contractor that we've hired, we've tendered the work, and they're responsible for damage that rectifying damage that they create in the course of their construction. That would be the most likely scenario you'd see something like that. In which case it would be the contractor's cost.
Okay, so actually, why don't we just leave it then the way it is, but add within the next month and add BIM and then blue water BB, because it is a four-part discussion.
I've got council direct BIM staff.
To
Here.
commence discussion.
Okay, there, fair enough then, yeah, because the so and a future joint water, okay, I think it's fine the way it is. I mean, everyone understands what we want. Do we have any more thoughts on it? Do we have a mover and a seconder? Okay,
Graham's
thank you.
moving.
Graham. Any
Second.
Al, okay, thank you. Okay, hearing that, all in favor? I can't see the others, but I presume we're carried, so thank you. Jump to the agenda. So the next item on the agenda then is Patrick's report. Or just lost it.
Okay.
Yeah, water system replacement and next steps. Patrick, you have the chair or the.
Okay, thanks, John. So other than this major project, there's not a lot that's been going on in terms of capital work in Bowen Bay system. There was the issue with the Bowen Bay Well 1 that we discussed earlier that was less costly to resolve than anticipated. And then there's the major upgrades that are proposed. We're just going through the process required to secure the loan, to secure the funds. We expect to have that secured in May of this year. There's already been design work ongoing, funded from Blue Water's reserves. And we've just done some utility location and surveys. From May to September, we'll complete the design for those well upgrades, as well as the system interconnection piping, as well as the blue water water mains that have been identified for replacement, and a number of culverts that those new water mains would need to be replaced in conjunction with the water mains. So then we'd be looking at August to October tendering and procurement. And then the first phase of construction would be the well upgrades, the system interconnection, and about 70% of the phase 1 blue water water mains. And that would be from October of this year to approximately April of next year. The other 30% of the phase 1 water main replacements would be summer of next year, because there's a number of culverts that need to be done in that time frame as part of that piece. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're operating the new system in starting in the beginning in May of 2024, and then we'll go through a summer period and then aquifer recharge period, and have a much better understanding of how well that's worked, and we expect that it will achieve what we're hoping to. And if that's not the case for some reason, there is a substantial amount of borrowed funds that would be for the next phase, the phase 2 water mains, that a portion of could be diverted towards well exploration and development if needed. And so that's, in general, the next steps for that project over the next 3 years, or the well upgrades over the course of the next year, and water mains over the next 3 years. So if there's any questions or any further detail you'd like about that, you can let me know.
Any questions from the members? Okay, well then, thank you, Patrick. That's great. I'm glad quite pleased we have some progress, and we're moving forward with the West Side Water file. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I think as brought up earlier, is there any new business? There wasn't any suggested earlier, and there's no other business. We've got just an information item that the island plan is provided, and
You're going to get a new one. That's the 2022. 2023 is coming.
oh, good.
Stay tuned.
Okay. And then I think the next meeting is to be determined, probably fall, when there's some more info on how perhaps things are going with the construction work. And we look forward to a subcommittee meeting of the 3 water systems to continue the sharing agreement discussion. Anything else? Then I would seek a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Okay, thanks, Terrence. And I think Graham put up his hand too. So let me adjourn.
Don't need
Thank you
one.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.